I like the vagueness of not mentioning anything about a product, service, problem, or solution in most of the touch points. I like to generate curiosity. And so a lot of that comes from heavier personalization that really doesn't have to be spun into something relevant. And so what ends up happening is if you've got a message that cuts through the noise, gets them curious, it's all about them, nothing about you, they're going to do their own research. So it kind of banks on two things. One is you've built in relevancy because you've got the right targets, right? I mean, that's the big piece, right? You know you're reaching out to the right people, and that as long as it's timely and your message cuts through the noise, they're probably going to be open to a conversation.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Travis. How's it going?
Good. I'm really excited because today we're doing something really different. Today's guest is an actual avocado.
Oh my God.
Slice up this avocado with some outbound sales, tomatoes, maybe a little cilantro, spread them onto your revenue toast, garnish with some everything bagel seasoning, and enjoy some improved outreach metrics.
I hate you.
She's the director of growth marketing at Interseller. She is a friend of the show and a partner here at Panadoc. It's Kristina Finseth. Hey.
Oh, I'm going to be thinking of that analogy all day long.
Kind of violent, though, don't you think? Please not slice up our guest.
Our audience might be wondering, Travis, that's a really cool avocado metaphor. What the hell are you talking about? So first question out of the gate, Kristina, is, are you an avocado fan? Or is that just a LinkedIn branding tactic that I need to steal and put in front of my name and profile image?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, I do like the frequent avocado toast. But yeah, it was a branding thing that I did back to conceal my internal process when I was doing full cycle sales and working out of a 2-bedroom apartment with 5 other people. I was like, I've got to conceal the fact that my house is a shitstorm right now. So I'm going to find a virtual background. And it was right around the time when Canva launched virtual backgrounds. And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And now I've just owned it. So
Patrick, if you were to select an inanimate object, what would your background be?
Great. You know me, bro.
That's right.
That's insulting. I thought we were friends. We hug.
Sorry. You're right. What would mine be?
Yours?
Deceit, lies,
Yeah.
betrayal.
The dead emoji.
Okay. That's our show. It's like, what?
Okay, so great. I talked about avocados today. We're good. Your analogy, we'll just leave people with the analogy. That's it. That's all they need.
We like to start off the show with a little bit of an opener. This is a new segment, and it's called "Do you need this energy in your life?" Are you ready for this?
This is a legit surprise.
Yes.
Okay.
End of month, and you're probably saying to yourself, I'm never gonna drink coffee again because coffee's for closers and I can't close shit. Not true. You're gonna drink coffee by the gallon, not the cup after this. You're gonna close your little ass off. Yeah, you are. Good morning, you bad, beautiful sales bitch. You okay? Let's analyze the pipeline. Let's see where we're at. Let's push people down to close and sign. You know what I mean? Anyway, true story for you. Sales, it's a numbers game, okay? I had an ugly good friend of mine, looked like a damn velociraptor. I mean, historians would flock to him, try to photograph him. Ugly bastard. He'd go out to the bar and hit on 100 women, 100. All of them would say no, besides one. Most likely a Sarah, Kelly, and Tammy Lynn, respectfully. You know what I mean? It only takes one, okay? You're probably in this position because your prospecting sucks. Have you tried incorporating the word bitchin' into your talk track? Guaranteed they close. Loosens the shoulders, gains the trust of your prospect. Anywho, let's do one thing together. I to you, you to I. Could be, let's get dangerously, and I mean dangerously, caffeinated. Ask your prospect to cancel plans for charcutes. Guaranteed you close.
Do you need that energy in your life?
Get that as far away from me.
Shout out to Kevin Cooney on Talk.
I'm sorry, Kevin, but don't come near me, please.
Wow.
Yeah, Kristina, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I think I just expelled energy watching it, but all I could focus on was how nice his teeth were.
Yeah.
It's like, dude's got nice teeth. It kept doing the zoom to his face. And I was like, wow, his teeth are perfect. Yeah.
Loosens the shoulders. I came across that and was just like, I just need to share this with the world. It's I went through his talk to see if like if that was real, like, or is that like a farce? Is that a character he's playing? I don't know the answer. I looked at like dozens of his talks, and anyway, I just wanted to get hyped up. I know last day of month was a couple days ago, and the marketing team, we feel for our sales friends. It's not always easy, and some months are better than others. Some quarters are better than others, and so I just wanted to give you a little something to make you both cringe and smile at the same time.
Yeah, it made me do that. That's
Yeah.
the exact thing it did.
Let's move into something that you posted that is nothing like what we just watched. I went through some of your awesome LinkedIn content, and this was one of my favorite videos that you did. And I feel like it had a simple yet very tangible tactic to take away. And I will pull it up here, and then we can talk a little bit more about it.
This means how cold mine. So let's just say that you're really targeting more mid-market. So I'll just say 51 to 200 employees and 201 to 500. We'll just leave it at that. And then this piece, company headcount growth. This means how quickly is this organization growing right now? And so I like to hone in on 50% plus. So what this is now saying is, I only want to surface the companies that have grown by 50% up to 100%, right? So when I hit add, you'll see that here, greater than 50% headcount growth. What that's going to trigger for me is not only are these companies scaling headcount, but that usually correlates with increased budget, increased needs, a way to kind of sell in for value, because they probably have some needs or some gaps in that process, or again, they have the budget, right? So this is like a gold mine, and it really narrows down. So you'll see 378 results on this particular list for me. But if I remove this, it's 4,000 plus results. So maybe this is your overarching target list, but by adding this headcount growth, maybe these are the cream of the crop, right? These are the ones that you really, really, really want to take some extra time in reaching out to. So I hope this is helpful. That's just one.
It was helpful. Thank you.
That filter's baller. Yeah, it really does. It surfaces a lot of high growth accounts. So
How did you stumble into using this filter?
great question. I was building out target account lists in Sales Navigator.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that and I was like, what does this mean? And I realized by testing it that it meant that it was high growth companies, or I guess companies that were scaling quickly. And so I think this was probably back before, I'm not going to say the C word. It's probably not the C word Patrick's thinking about in his head right now. COVID, back before COVID, or right when it happened. And I was like, who's still growing?
I thought it might be like Kevin Cooney kind of C word, but keep going.
No.
I tried to whisper in his ear and he wouldn't let me. I was like,
He's like, no, I don't want any of that. But yeah, I think for me, it was like, all right, who's still growing right now, despite everything that's going on in the world? Because that's who my team should be hyper focusing on.
Yeah.
As kind of like quasi tier ones, if you're in more of like a startup environment and don't have that all kind of ironed out. So my SDR team, they have two really core, I guess, target account lists or searches within Salesforce or the Sales Navigator. And one of them is that overarching, like, here's your mass like opportunity territory. And then, hey, here's kind of your tier ones. Let's treat those a little bit differently here.
So let's say you are reaching out to someone that's in that tier one. They are a high growth company. Are we just walking in with like the standard, like, hey, saw you're hiring a bunch? You're like, oh, please God, no.
No, that's just your trigger. That's the thing. I think people get triggers confused with needing to infuse that said trigger into their outreach. That trigger is for you to use. Like, I know that these are the accounts I want to work a little bit harder. So I'm
Gotcha.
probably going to have a little bit of a stronger cadence and definitely be running multi-channel on those to try to get the most opportunity out of it. I'm probably going to personalize a lot more. I'm going to be really delicate about doing one, target lead from that account at a time versus kind of mass blasting, right? So I think it's more, let's not infuse that into our outreach. Let's use that as a basis for saying, I need to really work these.
Question.
Go ahead.
What do you think about using it to formulate like a good question around how your product can help a company that's growing?
So I don't know. I'm nuanced on this. I think if you've looked back at any of my content, I tend to follow a little bit of a nuanced approach first, in the sense that I like the vagueness of not mentioning anything about a product, service, problem, or solution in most of the touch points. I like to generate curiosity. And so a lot of that comes from heavier personalization that really doesn't have to be spun into something relevant. And so what ends up happening is, if you've got a message that cuts through the noise, gets them curious, it's all about them, nothing about you, they're going to do their own research. So it kind of banks on two things. One is you've built in relevancy because you've got the right targets, right? I mean, that's the big piece, right? You're reaching out to the right people, and that as long as it's timely and your message cuts through the noise, they're probably going to be open to a conversation. You can't control the other factors of timings, right, et cetera, right? Unless you have really awesome intent data, which kudos to you. But what it also banks on is that you have a website that if I click on the website in your signature, within a matter of seconds, I know at least what you do and what wheelhouse you're in. And then 9 times out of 10, and I have data on this too, almost apples to apples, the amount of people who click on the link in my signature block and the amount of people who reply back with that context of who we are and what we do without me having to spell it out, it's almost apples to apples.
Damn.
They're gathering their own context.
Yeah, we talked
They're
about that
doing their
before,
research.
Kristina. I've done that exact
Okay.
same play. It does convert the best. Like that 100% is going to be the best possible play. The one thing I'll say is, like, I feel like it takes a lot of skill to do properly. And in my experience, it's been hard to take like a 22-year-old college student who's never sold before and like get them into that right away. It's like, how do you feel like we can scale something like that into like a brand new entry-level sales team?
Yeah, I mean, this is a good question. And I get asked that a lot. I think, first of all, let me just put out a buffer here that you have to have a fallback. And I talk about this a lot too. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
But let's be real, not all of our prospects have something to personalize with. And we're not going to be grasping for really shitty stuff like, I saw you were endorsed for awesomeness 150 times on your profile on LinkedIn. I thought I'd reach out. That's probably not going to convert, right? But you should have a fallback is number one. The second part is you have to have kind of clear guidelines. So there's got to be a process to this. And the reps need to know where the creative freedom comes into play. And you have to help build their confidence. So I think kind of workshopping it can be really helpful. But for that first touch, which is usually the most hyper personalized one that I'm kind of referencing with the data and everything, you don't need to overthink that. Build a building block template where 2 key components change out every time. And that's based on the reps research. And then show your reps the research prioritization. Here's where you're going to look when you're working an account so that you avoid the rabbit hole. You don't spend too much time. If these things don't exist, boom, move to your fallback. It's just got to be a process thing. Communication's got to be clear, and you've got to empower them to know where the creative freedom comes into the process.
I have a question, which is, you've been consulting with PandaDoc, and I was wondering, where did you see us in the last couple of months that you've been working with us make the most changes and like most improvements? Like, where did we start where we were struggling, and where do you see some improvements that were made? And if you wouldn't mind just giving a little bit of context of like how you've been working with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working as kind of a stopgap for a couple of months as new internal hires were being made. And really what I did, it was more of like the phase 2 of PandaDoc moving into this outbound motion, right? My understanding was that phase 1 was kind of, hey, we're going to start doing outbound and everyone can submit plays and cadences, and we're going to just test them and see what kind of moves the needle, right? So when I came on board, it was like, okay, now let's look at all of said cadences, figure out what's working about them, what's not, and let's level them up. So when I came in the door, the first thing that I figured out, and first of all, Jed and Max, much love for them. Jed is like just a rock star. I mean, you've got good SDR leaders over there too. But what I found is that cold calling is probably the strongest for the team. And so it was important to keep those steps, even though that's not what I'm known for, is cold calling. So I really just took the emails and kind of leveled those up. But I'd say most of it, if I have to be really simplistic here for the sake of not getting too granular, was, I looked at what are the metrics telling me about the cadences in play, right? And I look from the ultimate outcome that we want backwards. So I don't care really about vanity metrics to me, which is like opens. If meeting rate's not happening or opportunity rate isn't there, okay, then what's our reply rate look like? If reply rates were sub 10%, those need refresh.
Yeah.
If opportunity rate is sub, 1%, those need refresh. We need to work on that. And so I think the biggest thing is I took what was working, but I simplified it into multi-channel, made LinkedIn touch points stronger.
Yeah.
Because we were just scratching the surface on it here at PandaDoc, made those stronger part of the cadence, in addition to the cold calling and emails, and worked smarter, not harder. They all follow somewhat of a similar framework. The content changes based on the personas, but we don't need to have 20 million different things to choose from. Let's make it easy to run outbound and try to convert higher, right? So I think that's really what I looked at. What's the data telling me about what's working, what's not working, and where do we need to focus leveling up, and where are the gaps? Where do we not have cadences for specific verticals? So I think that's where I really focused a lot of my energy.
There was a statement that was made, and I wanted to ask it to you two, which was the best sellers at PandaDoc, meaning the ones that are producing the most quota, are strong at social selling. They incorporate LinkedIn as a big part of their process when it comes to outbound. Would you say that's accurate or not really?
I don't know if it tracks, but I think you could say a couple of our top performers are huge on LinkedIn.
Okay.
But I don't think all of our top performers are even on LinkedIn. I don't know if I'd say it's like a direct correlation.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't hurt. I mean, if you look at Jed books a lot of meetings on LinkedIn because he's got 3,000 people subscribed to his newsletter and 500 points of engagement minimum on every post. So of course he's gonna, get inbounds. And when he reach out to people, especially because we sell to salespeople and his content is sales, they know who he is. So it's much easier for him to book. But people like Luke aren't really big on that. Reed, Jared, Josh.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn. Monica's not on LinkedIn.
So maybe like a good way to say is like doesn't hurt. If you're doing it, it's not going to hurt.
Definitely helps.
Yeah.
But you can be a top performer without it.
Yeah.
But you can also add it and probably do even better.
Yeah.
Well, and let's not get that confused with personal branding versus maximizing your use of LinkedIn.
Do you want to help?
Big clear cut yes, I will help differentiate that. So let's look at Jed as an example. He's got a really strong personal brand. It's really clear that if I land on his profile, I can find a million things that he's a part of and gained a lot of traction on, and he's got a voice in the space, right? That helps to sometimes draw an inbound and make it easier to book an outbound lead because they look you up and they're like, oh shit, this dude's credible, right? But you don't have to do that. There's a lot of LinkedIn actions that should and do happen behind the scenes. And that's something that I build into cadences too. So for example, I'm sending a connection request. You can't see that. I'm doing a LinkedIn voice message or a LinkedIn video message. You can't see that either. I may be doing things with in-mails and DMs outside of that. You can't see that. So I don't think necessarily having public activity directly correlates to being successful.
Gotcha.
On LinkedIn. They can be mutually exclusive, but I think if you do both, that can be powerful. And I think the more that you can get good at all three channels, and this is something I talked to Jason about actually recently on his podcast, the more you can get good at all three channels, calling, emailing, and social selling, you're just going to maximize the opportunities that you're scooping up. So that doesn't mean you have to have this personal outward brand either.
Gotcha. That's a good differentiation, because it came up, like, I think marketing had this perspective. Again, I was at a marketing offsite and we were kind of discussing this because our marketing team is not very active on LinkedIn at all. And so we were talking about, like, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing. And we were like, well, yeah, look at, you know, some of the top sellers are very active on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, are they?
One of them.
So
one of 10.
So I think that's a really good differentiation for our audience, because there's so much stuff out there of just like, gotta be on LinkedIn. And so it's good to have that conversation.
Yeah, that second point about, you know, the connection requests, voicemails, things like that. Do you see those more as ways to lift up your other engagement rather than like book meetings directly? Or do you see it as like a book meetings?
I just posted about this yesterday. Hold on one second. I'm going to pull up a stat. I see the whole correlation of your cadence as helping to push through, like everything kind of compounds on one another. So for example, if my wheelhouse is cold email, right? Let's say I have, that's my strongest point. Then all my other touch points are probably going to try to lead them back to that or convert them on the spot, right? I actually I do a bi-weekly cold email Q&A with Will Allred from Lavender, which is so much fun.
Weird reaction, Travis.
I love Will.
Will is awesome. He's also just a really good person, right? That wants to help the space get better. But he had put out a post yesterday, I believe. I'm actually looking about what should a good cold LinkedIn DM look like. And I actually pulled in some data because I'm one of those people. There's a lot of advice being thrown around on LinkedIn. I'm big about, if I can tie some sort of data to it just to kind of further proof the case, then I'm about that. Out of 90 meetings that I've personally booked this year, 28 of those came directly from LinkedIn voice messages or a bump to a LinkedIn voice message. So that's a 31% conversion.
30%.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say if I wasn't doing that, I might have lost out on that 30% if I was just doing email, right? Or just doing email and cold call.
And imagine if you were doing like a Rick and Morty voiceover on your voice memo. Imagine how high that would skyrocket.
I thought you were about to reference Soulja Boy's platinum hit of Rick and Morty.
No.
Can we perform that at some point?
I'm always down.
All right.
But
I'm here for it.
For reference, Kristina, I was testing out my own ability to do voice memos on LinkedIn. This is like many episodes ago. I thought I'd put a little fun spin on it and do, oh, geez, Rick, you know, are you familiar with Rick and Morty? Or are you like, I don't know what you're talking about?
I am slightly familiar, but I can only imagine getting that message and playing it, and maybe it being in an open office environment without headphones and people being like, who was that?
Oh, geez, Kristina.
Morty, I can't believe we voice messages like that.
I saw you're getting 30% response and booking rates with your voice memo. All right, I'm done. I did want to wrap up the episode. I know your strong suit is definitely cold emailing, but I thought this would be interesting for the three of us to discuss here. I got a demo of a podcasting software and I shared it with Patrick. He was able to view, I think, the first couple minutes of it. And I'm not going to play the whole 35-minute demo, but I did want to kind of pull a couple of clips and just talk about it, like where we think this rep maybe could have done things differently when she was doing the demo. Yeah, so I put a post out on LinkedIn that I didn't have a great experience with a very popular podcasting software called Descript. And I got a couple people reaching out to me from other podcasting companies that were like, you should try out ours. And so this person reached out to me, an SDR, And I said, I'll take a meeting. I'll book a demo with you if you watch an episode of my podcast and tell me what your favorite parts are. And so he did. He followed up and he wrote me like a really long response of all his favorite parts of the specific episode. And so I was like, okay, I'm a man of my word. I'll take a demo with you. And that's this demo. It's a podcasting software for like live streaming and recording your like video content.
Okay.
All right. And there was no, this was the very first meeting and call.
Got it.
Went from LinkedIn messaging to this. And let me share my screen.
No transition? Yes, please tell me there was. I'm just timing out here because I saw a different person on the.
Yeah, so it was I forget what his name was. Let's call him
Rick.
Mortimer.
Let's call him Let's call him Rick. Rick is the one that LinkedIn DM'd me and I gave homework to. And then he said, I'm going to book a meeting with one of our, top
Cool.
AEs. And then he
Ooh.
was on the call and was just like, hey, Travis, I want to introduce you to this person whose name I will bleep out. And yeah.
But you're going to show their face.
I know. I was just about to say you're going to show their face, and I see the name in the tab. But
Again,
cool, let's do
if this
it.
part doesn't make the cut, that's
It
okay.
happens.
We'll figure it
It
out.
happens.
I just thought it'd be fun, even if this doesn't make it to the
let's
podcast.
just do it as a fun friend.
Let's just do it.
Is that okay?
Yeah, let's be
Yes.
fun.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I got it. Travis.
Okay, let's see. Let me jump to this part.
Before we get going on the demo, I'd love just a bit more background on kind of what you are being tasked with as far as content you're creating. I know podcasts and video is a big part of that. So would love just some insight into kind of the roadmap of what you're looking to create and what tools you're currently using to create it.
Yeah, I will kick it off and say we're doing a lot when it comes to video creation and video syndication. We've obviously got the podcast, as Dan mentioned. It's a big part of our multimedia kind of content strategy that we're building more and more into our marketing mix. And yeah, right now I am using the old faithful Zoom to record my podcast interviews. I was tinkering around with Riverside, which you may or may not be familiar with, and I ran into too many bugs with it. It was a total pain in the ass, and it was just causing too much stress on me and to the people I was interviewing.
I'll pause there. What did we think about her kind of opening question there? And what thoughts are you having as you're listening to this? I'll just open the floor. If no thoughts are had, that's okay too.
I have lots of thoughts, but I'll let Patrick.
I mean,
So
that's
if he
pretty
wants to.
standard. I feel like a lot of people open like that.
Mhm.
I'm not sure why.
Do you like that opening? or-
No, the thing I like about it is you could work it for anybody, right? Like it's not personalized in any way. It's
Mhm.
just like, hey, why are you talking to me? Like, what projects are you working on? What brought you to me?
Mhm.
I think that's a decent way if you haven't prepped to start the meeting.
Mhm.
Not to dunk on this person too hard, because I think she's actually very good at like immediately building rapport through like her tone.
Yeah.
And the conversation, but it's mostly the content. I'd say like if she works with a lot of people that are podcasting, I'd like her to like open up with like stories of other people that like are dealing with similar things based on like you have a post, like you have all this content and context
Yeah.
that you've given.
And I don't even know if she
To be
read that
like,
post.
Yeah. So to be like, hey, like other people that are dealing with this, they were saying X, Y, and Z. Like,
Yeah.
how are you feeling about that? Does that resonate with you? To give an idea of like where to start. When I feel like you put too much on the prospect, it's like, okay, are we even going to start in the right place?
I did feel like I had to do a lot of the selling myself and
Yeah.
explaining like what I need, what I'm going through.
Which like, it depends on the kind of sale, right? Like if somebody requests a demo, I don't think it's a horrible idea to be like, hey, why?
True.
But you could definitely put more into that.
Yeah. Kristina, what do you think? So
Yeah,
far?
considering you were technically a cold outbound lead to
Mhm.
Rick, we'll call him Rick. I like calling him Rick. That's my new name for everyone now if I don't know their name. I feel like not seeing the handoff is kind of hard for me, so this context might not be there, but wouldn't he have mentioned the post to his AE and maybe kind of prepped her to say like, hey, this is where he's already at. He's already unhappy with this. And then I would weave that into my intro to you, right? Before I kind of hand off the floor to you. Hey, I took a look at the post that I know, Rick reached out to you about, or reached out to you after. Looks like you're really unhappy with some of the experience you've had with whatever the name of that thing is. You said just whatever. We've had a couple customers that have come to us from them and they really like this. I'm curious, why did you take the call today? Is it because you're ready to explore this? I think I would probably just like sum up what my understanding is first before I hand off to you for kind of validation and adding more color. And just kind of go that way. And then I might even, honestly, when I was doing full cycle sales, one of my favorite things to do, because listen, you're a cold outbound lead. That's different than an inbound lead to me. And while you do have familiarity in the podcasting arena, I should be giving you some really quick overview. And I'm talking like 2 sentences of what's different about us, knowing that you're experienced with podcast software, right? So like I would start out something like, hey, and before I hand off to you, because I'm really curious to hear what you have to add to this conversation that can help us drive this, let me go ahead and just give you the quick high level 2 sentences of how we differ from XYZ and where we fit into the space. That's what I would do. And then make sure that you had clarity about that before going into your spiel.
Gotcha.
So that's just me. I think
she did it reverse. I think she let me just like vomit and then gave maybe a little bit longer than 2 sentences. And I know this is hard because I'm like chopping it up. I'm showing you specific sections, but just for the context of a podcast, we don't have time to listen to a whole 40-minute demo, but that is good advice. And she did do that. I think I'll jump to the next clip here. And let's see, I said at 3:15. So I was trying to focus on parts where she was asking questions.
And I do agree with Patrick though, side note, like her tonality, the way she carries herself, like it's very inviting to conversation, right? So
agreed. Yeah, I definitely felt like really comfortable to like lay the cards out. And even if this goes nowhere, she seemed like somebody I could stay connected to, if nothing else.
Yeah. Cool.
So this is the part I think, Kristina, that you were talking about where she's like, here's how we fit into the broader ecosystem of like.
Is we really pride ourselves on being an end-to-end content creation tool designed for the enterprise. So when I say designed for the enterprise, it means it's really easy to use and it's super scalable. So, like I said, it's easy to use, empowering more people to be able to be content creators, but also you're able to use it for a ton of different use cases. We are really great at recording content. That's kind of one of the biggest use cases people use Social Live for. Recording content for podcasts, recording content to stream out live later, recording content just to live on demand. There are a ton of different workflows that we can go through today to kind of demonstrate, all you can accomplish. The reason I asked about live streaming is that is another kind of feature that we have, the ability to stream out live amongst different channels. We are a preferred partner of LinkedIn Live. I know Restream is as well, but hopefully you'll be able to see, as we go through this, we're kind of the Ferrari in the industry, allowing you guys to do a lot more as far as customizing your content and making it really specific to PandaDocs. Versus a Restream that you can do a bit of custom stuff, but a lot of it is kind of canned out of the box. So, just
thoughts.
I wouldn't pitch that early in a call. I'm just thinking like, how far are we?
We are 6 minutes in.
I think I made this comment where I was like, okay, we're in a demo 6 minutes in.
Yeah. Right now is when we pivot into the demo.
But there's always like a difference in methodology. I think some people think like if you have an outbound lead, you need to like show them the product and pitch them because they don't know who you are. I think there's some truth to that, but you still need to weave in like a lot of good discovery, or at least figure out like where they're at in the buying cycle, like what's going on, what they're running into, potential gaps. But like I don't know what methodology she's using. It's hard to listen to a call without really knowing the context of how they sell.
True. I was surprised that we were going to jump into a demo this quick. And I was like, oh, that's okay. We're done with the discovery. And
that could be their process. I never know like
True.
if a rep is going like off process or if like this is their process.
True.
It's hard to know.
Well, and to that point, I think, and this is not a plug on her at all, right? It could be coaching, training, or process oriented, and that's what they're instructed to do. But, I feel like their deeper discovery, this would have been a great place to like weave in the storytelling you were talking about, Patrick, earlier, like the anecdote, kind of talking through like some of the use cases that might be specific to PandaDoc, or even just digging in deeper to your pains, because in that spiel, there was really nothing that really differentiated this against really any product in my voice. But some of the best calls that I've listened to, and even some of the best calls that I've been on, were literally 20 minutes of discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe let's go through like the pieces of the product that really matter based on that discovery, not the full suite, right? So, hey, here's where we're going to hone in on, because this is what you told me was really important in discovery. And sometimes we have to schedule a demo outside of the discovery, depending on how much time it takes. But yeah, I feel like 6 minutes is pretty early. I feel like I'd want to know a lot more, right?
And back to Patrick's point, like when you say like, I want to know process, if she's following like, are you saying like, oh, this is what her sales leadership requires her to do, and it's not necessarily, she doesn't have a say in it. Like this is how it has to be done.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the case or not, because like I know there
Yeah.
are a lot of outbound orgs that their process is like get them into the demo ASAP, show them the product, show them everything. I don't know why that's the thing,
Mhm.
but they're like, show
Yeah.
them everything, get them hooked on it, show them the value, get them excited about the value, whatever that means.
Yeah, we
And
talked
then-
about that with Pete. How dare
which
you
means nothing.
assume you know the value? You
Yeah,
have to find it.
yeah, and I think it comes from like people misunderstanding the challenger methodology a lot of the time. But yeah,
I can
I'm
tell
not
you,
sure.
we did a from here on out, we did like 20 minutes of just demo. She screen shared. I won't make you all sit through any more of that. The thing that probably bummed me out the most, and this isn't her fault. They don't have a free trial. And later on, I go, this all looks great, but I want to test this on an actual recording with Patrick and a guest, maybe somebody internal at PandaDoc. So if something goes wrong, it's okay. They're not going to be too upset with us. But I wanted to actually like test it in a live environment. And she was like, oh, we don't have that capability, but what we can do is kind of set you up with a solutions engineer and run it. And I was like, okay. So I think just like, maybe that would be my feedback to like, podcasting companies. Like a free trial is critical, to be able to get in there and test this stuff out. You guys do video content, both of you do. So, before you dump a bunch of money into something, you really want to try it out. And I wasn't really getting the vibe that I could do that towards the end. So
Context, maybe like all the podcasting software is like kind of bad, and that if they all gave trials, it would just be like, oh, these are all bad.
Oh, that's a hot take.
But I'm just saying, like it's a new space.
It
right?
is.
Like the first CRM was probably terrible.
it is, it is.
So I'm assuming the reason they're not giving trials is like, well, they all have issues, and if you don't like part of a trial and there's nobody there to like guide you through it, people get frustrated and like bounce off.
True.
Which is why people don't often give trials for stuff like that. That's probably
Yeah.
she
But
wants
as someone
to-
in the tech space, when I don't see I'm sorry to cut you off there, Patrick.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, for someone who's in the tech space, maybe I just have, like all of us probably have more clarity around this. When I don't see a free trial or a month-to-month option, at least to start with, I get a little hesitant, because I really do believe in product-led growth, especially if you're selling tech. PandaDoc's that way. I'm a PandaDoc customer ×2, by the way.
Oh, that's what's up.
Interseller's a PandaDoc customer, which is my full-time gig. And then on the consulting side, I use PandaDoc. So PandaDoc squared. And yeah, I know on the consulting side, it's month to month, but it's product-led growth. You believing in your product when you set it up that way.
Mhm.
And that it's going to do its selling for you at that point. So
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and Patrick brought up a good point in that as well, is like they may have such a low conversion rate from the free trial that they're like, but if we can do a free trial where I'm holding your hand through it in more of like a sandbox one-on-one demo part 2 continued kind of thing,
Yeah.
that you'll convert much higher because we'll walk you through the stuff that might trip you up. And
Also, like, not everything should be PLG. Like, think about like an ERP. Like a free trial on an ERP wouldn't make any sense.
What's
like,
an
you would just
ERP?
get
No.
so lost. It's like resource planning software where like a lot of people use it for warehouses to like track
Totally.
okay.
different things. But yeah, it's so complicated. Like, there's certain enterprise softwares that don't. This software probably could work, but like I said, I think they're all just probably bad right now and are probably like super glitchy. So you would just have a bad experience and bounce off.
I can tell you a lot of the professionals in the podcasting space that I've talked to. Yeah, it's we're in early stages of these products, and nobody has like the definitive go-to, and the ones that have been the definitive go-to, I didn't really like.
Yeah, right. Like you tried the top one, you're like, this is bad. It's like, imagine the ones that are 5 and 6.
Yeah. So work to be done. It's a new space.
And not taking shots at any of these companies, by the way. They're all bad. You're all equal.
I was like, oh, Patrick's gonna say something. No, he's not gonna say something. You got my hopes up there.
You're just as bad as everyone else.
That's what my
You
marketing
suck
team says
too.
to me about this podcast. Like, don't worry.
Oh my god.
This is bad as every other podcast. Kristina, thank you so much for joining us. And
Thanks for having me.
this was fun. I think we leaned heavy into like the tactics and takeaways, which I wanted to. And I feel like Patrick got the chance as well to like ask some questions from his former enablement life and like talk shop. So it was cool to just kind of sit by and watch you guys do that.
Thank
So.
you. Thanks for being on, Kristina. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And then is there anything we can plug for you? Where can people find you? What would you like to promote?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all over LinkedIn, right? So LinkedIn is probably my hub, I guess. But yeah, I mean, honestly, if anyone wants to geek out on cold outbound or specifically cold email, hit me up.
Yeah. Go check out those webinars that you're doing with Will Allred. Oh,
Yes.
Your reaction to
know.
Will
He's
was
such a
hilarious.
dreamboat. I just love
you
him.
You turned into a pile of goo.
No.
Can you like maybe do some sort of light video editing where you put some graphics of like stars in your eyes when you say his name? You know, just a little bit of
You should
editing.
put like a Will poster behind you.
Or like a heart, like you should do a temporary tattoo with like a heart on your arm. Wear sleeveless. Yeah, you know, no big
It's
deal.
actually a really good idea.
You should like the All Red brothers, and it's like him.
I'm-
Find one of his brothers.
We bring Will back on the show and I'm like, Kristina made me do it. And they like take my shirt off and it's just a fake tattoo.
Or have the TikToker guy, hire him to like do a big spiel about why Will is so great. I don't know. I want that guy to be every birthday card I ever send to anyone.
You just
Moving
open
forward.
the birthday card, it's an instant panic attack.
Good. Well, good. I'm glad
Awesome.
I apologize if he offended anyone. He was so much that I was like, oh my God.
We'll just heavily edit that down.
But yeah, I don't stand by or promote that culture. I just was like, wow, this is a lot. But thank you so much, Kristina. And
you.
we appreciate you. Panadoc ×2. And follow the avocado, folks.
Thanks for hanging out with us today on the Customer Engagement Lab. For more of Travis and Patrick's chaotic energy, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you would make our hearts smile if you left a super quick rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the show deserves. It'll take you 2 seconds, I promise. Until next time.